Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Sights on Sinnoh, the Diamond and Pearl anime podcast headed towards Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. With me this week, I am joined by Carina. How's it going?
Hello, it is goodly. I have a new computer, which is the most exciting thing happening in my life right now. So hopefully the computer behaves throughout this recording and we end up with a recording. Fingers crossed.
There we go. Yeah, it seems like it's off to a good start. Have you been playing any Unite lately, or any other Pokemon-related games?
I actually have been playing Stardew Valley nonstop. It went on sale for $10 last week, so I finally bought it after having my eyeballs on it for literal years, and I've put in about 40 hours in the past week, so that has been my life.
Wow, okay. Sounds like quite the farmer's life.
Yeah, I've worked
there.
like the equivalent of a full-time job in Stardew Valley.
That's true. Does Stardew Valley have like animals that you can raise?
Yeah, except for I
Okay.
didn't realize that you had to that you couldn't grow food for them throughout the winter and the spring. So I haven't fed them in like 2 seasons, so they're a little bit unhappy. But they can't die. They can just like be grumpy. So we're good. When summer rolls around, they'll be great.
Okay. That's good to know. Always nice when your livestock stays alive. And this week we are actually talking about some Pokemon livestock on today's episode. Yes. The first episode is titled Tanks for the Memories, and it's episode 10 of Battle Dimension. So, what did you think about this episode just going in with the setup? Because there's no cold open, but there's just like a weird...
it opened, and I was like, it's the Maid Cafe episode! I've been seeing GIFs and screenshots from this episode all over the internet the past few months, and I was like, I have no idea what the context for this. And this was it. This was the context. This is the money episode in terms of pictures of everybody in Maid outfits.
Exactly. It's all been leading up to this. This is the pinnacle of the Diamond and Pearl series right here. And surprisingly, not as much of a meme as I thought it was going to be. But we'll get more into that. So let's read the blurb first, which is, Brock leads his friends to the Mountain Hut Maid Cafe, where waitresses Spring, Summer, and Autumn serve up fresh Miltank milk. Spring and Summer's Miltank are perfectly trained, but Autumn's new Miltank, Ilta, won't listen to anything Autumn says. Autumn is ready to give up on Ilta, but Brock wants to repair the relationship between trainer and Pokemon.
Wait, Miltank milk? Is it not Moo Moo milk? Did they call it Moo Moo milk in the episode? Is that something different?
That's a good question. So, later on in Bulbapedia, it says Moo Moo milk, but just that first summary seems to say Miltank milk for some reason.
Interesting. But I was assuming it was Moo Moo milk.
You're right, because that's what it's called in the games. It's an item that heals you for like 100 health points. So pretty good healing item, actually. And this whole episode actually revolves around a real location in the games.
Where does it revolve around?
Well, literally, I think the only thing you can do there is buy this Moo Moo milk, and I think it's geographically in the right place between Solaceon Town and Veilstone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm trying to remember where our heroes are on the trip exactly. If they got through Solaceon Town, I think they did for the contest. Yeah.
Yeah, Dawn just lost in Solaceon Town. Yes,
exactly, and that's a big theme or like plot point of this episode is Dawn kind of recovering from that loss still. But it's not necessarily the A or B plot. I'd say the A plot is more of Brock trying to help Autumn and Ilta. But it's still nice that we get some like side character development for Dawn as she kind of faces this this struggle, I guess, in her career.
Yeah, I didn't love Brock in this episode. I feel like there was a lot going on with him, but we can get to that.
Right. Yeah, there's Brock this is probably the most featured and most that he's done actively. Both good and bad. So to start off, as we enter the cafe, he's immediately going into the like the I don't know what to call it exactly, the kind of like behavior, I guess, that cafes are supposed to inspire people to have, which is kind of just like treating it like you're at home, making it feel like a very familiar environment, which confuses Dawn and Ash for a bit because they're like, have you been here before? Like, what's going on, Brock? But this is when he kind of jumps in a lot, and Krogunk has a lot of time trying to keep Brock from doing any over flirtatious stuff with the waitresses here. And that eventually leads
Krogunk had some good emotional closed captioning in this episode.
Yeah, he was working overtime for sure. And we finally get to the barn section where we learn about how each of the waitresses have their own milk tank that they're raising. Two of them, as I mentioned, are pretty well behaved. But then the third one is just it's just like chilling in the middle of the pasture, and just doesn't
just a few things. Sorry, continue. But a few things.
Sure, and it just doesn't listen to Ilta, who's clearly like the youngest out of these three, and even mentions that she's probably just gonna let go of Ilta, which kind of breaks Brock's character that we've seen so far this episode to being a very, very much breather mode, I guess, where he's like, hey, no, you can't give up on that. There's a lot that goes into the relationship between the trainer and the Pokemon, so we're going to work on that together.
Yeah, so the opening of this episode is like them showing up to this Maid cafe where we have these three, presumably sisters, running it. And of course, Brock like immediately hits on all of them. And I wrote this down, but I don't know if it was at this moment or when they're standing in the barn, but like Krogunk poison jabs him, and then the closed captioning says Krogunk repulsed, and I'm like, oh. So that was good.
Nice.
So like immediately after that happens, they like bring Ash and Brock and Dawn like out to the field. They're like, oh, like we have some thirsty customers, and I'm like, indeed you do. So they're like, okay, well, we need to like bring out the milk tanks to milk our milk tanks, and they like line them up and strap them into this milking torture device. And they have like these 3 milk tanks that are happily being milked, and then Autumn, who is one of the sisters, her milk tank, who is named Ilta, is just sitting out in the field scratching her butt, and I like how many times they show us Ilta scratching her butt. It's good. Oh yeah, and then I wrote down at this point Krogunk is amused. So
okay.
Krogunk really taking
I feel like I need to turn closed captions on. There's a lot of little details like this that I'm missing clearly.
It's real good.
But yeah, what do you think about the setup here for the episode, which is basically a cafe that's being run by these 3 sisters, and one of them's having issues with their milk tank, and Brock is kind of the one who steps in to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I think ultimately it's like, I don't know if I'd say it's like fillery, because it is trying to really show us like Brock as a character. It's like not really propelling the story along all that much. I think it's like the main selling point of this is we get a bunch of maids, and we get to see Brock being like a nice trainer. So like it's fine.
Yeah.
And then kind of on the side we have Dawn like dealing with having just lost a contest.
Right. And while Brock's dealing with that, we also get a moment where Dawn and Ash decide to help the rest of the sisters with running the cafe, and that leads to pretty much everyone dressing up in a maid outfit to fit the scenery, of course.
Yes, we get everyone in maid outfits, including Ash and Dawn and Piplup and Pikachu and Turtwig and everybody else who you could ever possibly want to see in a maid outfit shows up in a maid outfit to help out. I presumed that it was because like Dawn was out not Dawn. Autumn was out like dealing with her milk tank with Brock, and they're like, well, we need extra help, and y'all are here, so we clearly need like 8 of you to fill in Autumn's work here.
Autumn is the real multitasker of this little restaurant.
Yep.
And we get 2 customers to come in, one of them wearing a shirt that is a reference. Did you catch this by any chance?
I was trying to figure out who
Okay.
she was on the shirt, and I didn't know who it was.
Yes, so in the games, this character is called Chris. But in the anime, there was actually a series around 2002, so way before this one, like 5-6 years or so. And that featured a character called Marina for a 2-part episode, who is basically Chris in terms of design. But this is all taking place in the Johto region, and Marina is actually a Pokemon coordinator, as we find out in Jubilife, actually. And when Zoe is teaching Dawn about double performances, we see a clip of Marina using her Feraligatr and Jigglypuff to make a double performance. And her face is what's on this guy's t-shirt, actually.
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun bit of trivia.
Yeah, it's kind of deep, honestly, but it is interesting that this is the third appearance that third cameo she's kind of made in the course of just these 2 seasons of Sinnoh. So it could be that they're already teasing a bit of Johto coming back as remakes, but it's just a very interesting little detail that they decided to include in here. But Ash steps up to be the maid for them, which kind of startles them. But he's able to get them all comfy and drinking their favorite milk. And then we cut to Team Rocket, who decides that they want to start a cafe as well.
Yeah, with this episode and the next one, I was kind of unclear as to how Team Rocket did they just like happen to have the same business idea as the twerps? Like how did they decide, like, we decided that now is the time to start a maid cafe, clearly. And then in the next episode they're like, now is definitely the time to start a hot spring hotel. Like yes, this makes sense at this particular time.
That's so interesting. I totally skipped that connection between the two. It is very random, and like, if anything, this is probably the strongest motivation for them to realize that they need to steal a Pokemon, because they're like, hey, we're starting a cafe, but we need a source of milk, so that's why we need to steal a milk tank. And I'm like, all right, that's honestly a lot better than some other ones where they try to make a scenario completely out of thin air.
Yeah, so they decide to start their maid cafe, and they get all dolled up, although Jessie and Meowth put on their maid outfits, but James didn't put on a maid outfit. And I was like, why is James the only one not in a maid outfit? But
yeah.
Anyway, he puts on like this butler suit, and they try to open their cafe, and then I guess the same kids who went to like the actual maid cafe, like, show up to this one, and they try to get served, and Jessie's like, have coffee, and they're like, we don't want coffee,
we want milk.
And that's how they determine that they need to steal a milk tank.
Right, they're very stingy even with this coffee, because Wobbuffet serves it using like a like minuscule amount of coffee into this hot water, and the customers are like, this is barely even coffee. We're out of here. Like, we didn't even want this. We wanted milk in the first place.
Yep.
So yeah, that's their dilemma basically for this episode. And as we cut back to Brock and Autumn, he's teaching her a lot about patience and bonding with Miltank, while using his Happiny as his kind of disciple, basically, and showing like, hey, I'm going to bond with Happiny today, and you can kind of copy what we're doing.
Yeah, I thought that was nice, because I kind of forgot that Brock had a Happiny, to be honest, because we haven't seen much of him. So it was nice that kind of made sense that he's like, well, we haven't really seen much of this Pokemon, so we're going to use this opportunity to bond with Happiny.
Exactly, yeah. I really liked Happiny as a choice as well, not only because of screen time, but like, it makes sense. It's a baby Pokemon that he recently has acquired. And there's like a little scenario of him and Happiny bonding over a flower as they admire it. Ilta and Autumn try to do the same, but Ilta actually eats the flower.
It's like, I don't know why Autumn gets so upset.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you made your cow happy.
Right.
You gave them a flower to eat.
Exactly.
And I'll also say that, like, it makes sense that Happiny is chosen because they're like a baby Pokemon, but also Happiny kind of OP this episode.
Yes. Hapidi is the underrated hero here for sure. But yeah, I also found that weird that Autumn does not really have that connection with her Miltank. It kind of freaks out when things don't go exactly as Brock showed her. But even Brock shows that you can improvise with that and saying, hey, she still liked the flower. Like, it wasn't the way we did it, but if she enjoys eating it, that's also a good experience to have together.
Yeah, totally.
And as we go on, they do a number of things. I think one of them is like try to wash each other. They try to wash the Pokemon, like bathe them.
I laughed real hard at this part because like Brock is like, okay, so like get them all soapy and like give them a good scrub, and Autumn is like, great, and starts like scrubbing away, and then it like pans out, and Miltank is just a cloud of suds with these eyes. Miltank has these like eyes the whole time. This Miltank where they're kind of like half closed, and she's just looking like real chill, and she's like sitting there, basically just like a cloud with these slanty eyes, and it's super duper funny. So I enjoyed that scene. And also, yeah, I just identified with Autumn very much with her overall clumsiness.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of the traits they try to give her. Like, during this scene, she goes and tries to walk over to get water, and she just randomly trips over rocks. So she's just having a rough time here, but it's actually kind of amusing to see, unlike in other scenarios where it's not kind of merited as much, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and then this scene I kind of liked as well, where they go to a bridge and Brock tells her about supporting your Pokemon and giving them positive like reinforcement, basically. And for this demonstration, he walks across the bridge with Happiny, as Happiny kind of gets scared halfway across. But it says, no, you're doing a great job, we're going to make it across. And then it very adorably like jumps off at the end, and they just have a tender moment there. Autumn tries to do the same, but Ilta won't even budge as he tries pulling it until Brock tries to bait it with a Pecha Berry, and it has a very goofy smile on its face as it starts running across the bridge.
Yeah, and then halfway across, as expected, Miltank is like, holy cow, and then this really high, like, swingy, weak bridge, and stops. And Autumn is like, let's get going. And in order to try to get Ilta to move, she, like, gives her a big ol' slap and, like, slaps her, like, into the like, side of the bridge, I guess. And I guess she, like, rebounds or something, like, off the other end, and it's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like bumps into the railing, and then that shakes the bridge enough to move Autumn over to one side. And Brock rushes on to catch her as she like is about to fall off. And then the railing starts to break, so now they're both gonna fall down into the river. And Happiny, as you were saying before, really saves the day here and just yanks Brock, who's holding Autumn, and yeets them both onto safety.
Yeah, she just like catapults both of them off the bridge, all by its little eggy self.
Yeah, it's super cute. Another great demonstration here of Happiny's kind of signature trait in the series is that it's very small, but it's super strong, and I don't think that's ever really explained. It's just like, hey, Happiny has this like immense strength for some reason, but we're not really gonna tell you why, and then. I mean, that's okay. I think it works out, especially in situations like this.
Yep.
We go back to the pasture where Brock kind of tells Autumn, like, that's okay, and gives her reassurance. And this is the part that, like, I felt was the most unnecessary of this episode, is Autumn starts to kind of fall for Brock.
Yeah, I also, like... made a note of like this moment between Brock and Autumn is real weird, and I think like this is the moment where they're like gazing into each other's eyes, and like while they're busy doing that, Team Rocket swoops down and they're like, we're gonna conveniently take this Miltank while y'all are doing weird things.
Right. But just before that, we cut back to the cafe where we see like things are going past rush hour, and Ash goes out with Turtwig to go and try and train more, while Dawn kind of just sees him like run off excitedly. Piplup notices, and this is amazing. Did you see? Did you want to talk about how Piplup's walking around right now? I don't know if you made a note of that.
Dishes on its head. Is this the moment?
Yes.
And is like while walking by with all of these dishes, like notices Piplup is such a sweetie in this episode, and he's like, "Oh, I'm like busy, but I feel like something is up with you."
Yes, it's not. Yeah, it's already adorable. Somehow perfectly balancing this tray on its head, and. Yeah, Dawn is clearly dismayed and Piplup notices, which I think is another great little moment between the two. We cut to what's going on outside with Turtwig and Ash trying to train, and she also is kind of motivated by this to do it herself. She's like back in her normal clothes. But as she's about to like bring out a Pokemon to try and train, she gets a flashback of what Zoe told her.
Yeah, she gets a flashback of Zoe being like, well, you lost the last contest because like your move was real pretty, but we couldn't see we couldn't see your Pokemon, and that's kind of the whole point. And she like we flash back to like this whole paragraph that Zoe said, and then Dawn's like, I don't know what to do. And then Piplup comes up and is like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And Dawn starts crying, and it's like, oh, my heart. And then Ash comes around and is like, are you crying? And she's like, no. And he's like, oh, you just have something in your eye. And she's like, yes, definitely. And I'm like, how is this tiny little penguin more perceptive than the human that you have been traveling with this whole time? Piplup is immediately like, something is wrong. And Ash is like, oh, you clearly have something in your eye. And I don't even think in this case, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it wasn't Ash being like, oh, I'm going to give you an out. Like, it seemed like he genuinely was like, oh, you're not crying. Why would you be crying?
Yeah. Yeah, because he immediately is like, let's go eat food. And like, all right. And then they run off. Yeah, Ash is not the most like aware here, clearly. So not the biggest points for his character. Piplup really steals the show here as the emotional comfort for Dawn, which is nice.
Piplup being the most developed character as usual.
Yes, it's at least for now. We'll see as the show continues. But going back to Brock and Autumn, they're talking more about how to like raise them right. I think this is actually when the bath scene happens. We see Team Rocket is preparing for like what to do and decide to go get a milk for themselves, or a cow for themselves, which is Miltank. And Brock and Autumn find this like apple tree, which Ilta just starts punching, and a bunch of Beedrill come out because they're like, "What are you doing? You're just punching our tree, man."
Apples. So that was how she was getting them down.
Exactly. Yeah, she just really wanted the apples, but then starts retreating immediately once it sees all these Beedrill come out. And Autumn actually steps in front of Ilta to try to defend it as a Beedrill comes in. But then we get Happiny stepping in using a new move, which makes the Beedrill all start just freaking out in the middle of the air.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what was happening. Like, I think it like was supposed to paralyze them, but it was kind of hard to tell like what exactly was happening to the Beedrills.
Right. I also had like no clue what happened here because you just see a flash of pink come from Happiny, but even Brock doesn't say anything, so it's like what's happening here? They run back to the pasture where they're clear and just like resting from running away. And Ilta gives Autumn a big lick as like a thank you for defending it. So we're actually seeing some progress between these two, which is nice.
Indeed, yes, very cute.
And as Brock's trying to figure out what's happening with Happiny, this is when Team Rocket steps in and just, in this moment of like Brock laying on his back, they just grab Ilta and Autumn, and then Brock climbs onto the net as well to kind of make sure that they can't get away super easily.
Yep. And honestly,
Hmm.
like you mentioned that for once, like Team Rocket had a like good reason to like steal a Pokemon. But in this moment, I was like, why? Where did they come from? Why are they? What's happening? Why are they
Hmm.
stealing Ilta again? And it like took me a sec to be like, oh right, they need a milk tank because they need Moo Moo Milk because they want to open a maid cafe because they had that brilliant idea
Yeah,
at just the right moment. So
because reasons, basically.
yeah.
Um, and they do their whole motto in their in their like maid outfits, which is kind of cool. And as they start like just floating away with all these people underneath the balloon in the net, they go right by Ash and Dawn, who are just like eating ice cream outside the cafe, and they're like, "Is that Brock and Autumn?" And they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, we gotta finish our ice cream and then run after them."
Yep, very cute moment of Piplup on the steps licking an ice cream
Oh
cone.
yeah.
Very, very cute. And then they like see the Meowth balloon overhead and they're like,
Hmm.
that's a Meowth balloon and that's a
Right.
net and that's Brock hanging out in the net. We should go.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, break time's over. We gotta go rescue them now. But there's no need for them, as we see Happy as okay. So at this point, their Team Rocket has put Brock, Ilta, Miltank, and Happini and Autumn all in this cage. And as they kind of taunt them with the key, Happini just uses the move that we saw earlier, and they all fall asleep, which lets them like get out of the cage. And this is where Brock reveals that Happini is using secret power.
Yeah, I feel like Secret Power was a move I never really understood
Hmm.
in the games, so I'm not surprised I didn't really understand it in the anime.
Yeah. What from this episode? What do you think secret power does?
Well, Brock was like, first you paralyze the Beedrill, and next you put people to sleep, and therefore it is secret power. So I was like, I guess secret power just does whatever you need it to do in the moment, clearly. Makes sense.
Yeah, and totally, especially with the explanation, does not do a lot to kind of to make it comprehensible. So I actually looked this up myself because I'm not super familiar. And how secret power works is that it's a move that does damage with a 30% chance of causing a secondary effect. And that effect is determined by the environment that the move is used in.
Oh, so it is exactly what you need to do for whatever situation you're in. I remember is secret power the one you use to make your bases in like
Yes.
whichever game it is? Okay, yeah, that's the only thing I remembered about secret power, and I was like, I don't know how that translates to putting things to sleep, so I don't know what's
Right.
going on here.
Exactly. Yeah. And the list of things here that we see in action is if it's in a building or in a just normal terrain, so like probably a city or something like that, it has the chance of causing paralysis, which is, I guess, what we kind of saw by the tree. That's why there was all these rocks around the apple tree before. Um, or oh no, that was actually confusion. That makes more sense. Because it says
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
if it's a rocky terrain, it has a chance of causing confusion, and then if it's long grass, it has the chance of causing sleep, which is what we see here.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. I think it could be done a little better, but I do appreciate that them trying to use a move like this that's kind of abstract in how it's portrayed in the anime at least, because I always love seeing new moves just shown in the show.
Yeah, and clearly Brock knows what's up, which is what matters,
Right.
I guess.
And this is the first time I think we've ever seen this move in the anime, if I'm not mistaken. So another first there. So they're able to get out of the cage. Brock's very proud of this Hapidi, which I think is cute. Um, and then this moment I totally forgot about. Do you remember how Team Rocket wakes up?
How do they wake up?
Wobbuffet just pours
Oh yeah.
a bucket of water all over them, and they're like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, Wobbuffet's still in the maid outfit. It is
Yes!
like, wake up, we have work to do.
Oh man, that's even better when you put it that way. But as they get up and see what's happening, Ilta and Autumn are running off with Autumn just kind of pushing Miltank along until she trips from, again, just being a bit clumsy herself. And another like little weird romantic moment between Autumn and Brock, which is thankfully interrupted by Jessie of all people, as Team Rocket soars in on their balloon to try and catch them again. Yes, and this is where we get the battle between Team Rocket and Brock and Autumn. Ash and Dawn have finally caught up with them, which is kind of nice. He sends out Turtwig to try and use Energy Ball, which is the move that they've been practicing this whole episode. But it unfortunately does not quite work, as it just drops a little, like a few feet before it reaches Team Rocket.
Yeah, so Dawn and Ash finally catch up, and they're like, great, we're going to take on Team Rocket with a battle. And then
yes,
I think Dawn is like about to send out Piplup or something, and Brock is like, wait, we're going to do a tag team battle so that Ilta and Autumn can bond.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. He has enough confidence that, like, hey, if we fail, like, they can take care of it easily, but let's just, like, give this a shot, which is kind of nice. James sends in Carnivine, and then Ilta goes in for a headbutt, which is actually listening to Autumn, so that's a nice development there as well. Happini just like yeets the Viper by its tail, as it shows off its strength.
So OP this episode.
Yeah, and then it just hits them with a pound and just throws like all these people in the air, and that sets up for Miltank's rollout to just hit them and send them blasting off. So overall, very effective teamwork between all four of these, two Pokemon and two trainers for sure.
Yeah.
Miltank is now Ilta and Olive are now back to like together and collaborating, which is nice. We cut back to the barn where Autumn says, like, Ilta, can we please have some of your milk, as it straps in, and it just gives consent, I guess, to be milked.
Yes. Straps herself into this torture machine and is like, take my
milk. What makes you call it a torture machine exactly?
It looks like a torture machine. It's like this big, crazy metal thing with, like, tubes and knobs, and the Miltanks are, like, properly strapped in with, like, knobbly, belty. I don't know. It looks unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, probably for me and you, maybe it's a little more comfortable for the Miltank, but it is like a very elaborate contraption to get milk, and I actually am very curious now how milks are regularly milked in the real world, so I might have to do that comparison later. But that kind of wraps up the plot there between Ilta and Autumn, and as we get ready to say goodbye between our heroes and the maids here at the Maid Cafe, Brock reassures her, like, no, you're no longer my student, you've graduated, because clearly you're getting along with Autumn now. And just as they're about to leave,
in this moment for Brock to be like, you're no longer my student, which means we can get it on.
Oh my god, no!
I was so ready for him to like go down that line.
He's not into Autumn, clearly. He's very much into the sisters, though. Because as they walk away, they're like, come back anytime. And he's like, oh, if you say so, and starts running back, but Ash and Dawn stop him.
Brock is like, I think while they're in the barn and like Ilta is being milked, Brock like puts his arms around the other sisters and is like, I'm available for all kinds of consultations. Yeah. And I was like, okay, Brock, what kinds of consultations? And then at the end, I think he gets another poison jab from Krogunk, and this time Krogunk is exasperated.
Oh, that's funny. I kind of like how they're reading Krogunk's emotions here, because he doesn't really have a very emotional face typically. So another good idea for why to have the closed captions on. Indeed. But yeah, this pretty much wraps up the episode here. So what would you rate Tanks for the Memories?
I think I would give it I think I would give it like a 7. Like I think it was fine overall. Like the Maid stuff was very like I think it was an entertaining episode, and that's basically like all my ratings are. It's like, did I like watching this or did I not? And I think I did like watching this. I didn't like Brock. He did like too much weird flip-flopping between being like super horny and like super wise, and it was just like it was too much for me. I was like, can we just like not like this just doesn't make any sense. So I didn't love Brock here, but overall, I think the episode was a fun watch.
Yeah, same here. I was afraid this would feel super fillery and like just there to keep the show going, but I think there's a lot of neat stuff with Brock when he was being serious, and also acknowledging all the other little things that our characters are working on, like Dawn with her contest confidence, Ash with his Turtwig's energy ball, and it broke down the formula a little more than usual, which I appreciate. But yeah, I remember in the Happini episode, he very much got over this flirtatious self of his as he helped Nurse Joy help Happini hatch and also get the Pokemon Center up and running. And I kind of wish he had that consistency here as well, which I think is definitely the stronger part of Brock's character. So overall,
sorry, I was just gonna say, if I remember correctly, like in the past, he like was like head over heels immediately, but then was like serious for the rest of the episode,
yes.
Which I like a lot better than this weird like alternating between both of them. It was just like really jarring.
Right. So yeah, it could have been stronger if they just had more consistent personality for him throughout this episode. I think very much like that one. I liked Dawn's moment, kind of, because like they're kind of setting up how she's feeling at this moment, but they don't really deliver on it in a way that I think it could have been stronger this episode. But we'll talk a bit more about that because I think it kind of bleeds into what happens the following episode. Rating wise, I would also give this a 7. I think it's pretty enjoyable. Definitely a fun one that I could point people to if they want to see like what the Maid episode is about. Because I am very curious what people's expectations are when they see all those memes and GIFs on Twitter about it. And I'm happy to say I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely worth watching, even if you're just trying to see why are these outfits in play and where does this all come from.
Yeah, agreed.
This is the first episode in the season without a cold opening. If it's not obvious enough, the English subtitle is derived from "Thanks for the Memories." And, okay, this is the part that I think is also weird for why they chose to introduce secret power. Despite learning it in this episode, Brock Sapini would not be seen using secret power again throughout the remainder of the series. Does that surprise you at all?
Wait, so like we never see secret power again?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
it's like, why would you do this? It's a cool move that like could be used more often, but I guess they just wanted to do something with it this one episode and never again. So that's why even I forgot that Happini knew this move. But yeah, just some trivia there. In case you're a fan of Secret Power, I'm sorry to say it's no longer here. But what is here is the next episode called Hot Springing a Leak. And the blurb here reads, when it's late and there's no Pokemon Center nearby, Dawn comes up with the solution. Visit a nearby hot spring, owned by the parents of her friend Leona. So again, no cold open this episode.
I wrote down there is a cold open of Turtwig's energy ball failing again.
Oh, is there?
Am I wrong? That's what I wrote down, but I could have been not paying attention. But now that I'm thinking of it,
oh yeah, well,
yeah, there was a moment of Turtwig energy ball failing at the end of this episode. So yeah, I think there was a cold open.
It wasn't a cold open as much as they're just training, and then that's
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just then Brock saying, "Okay, like enough training for today. We need to go find a Pokemon Center."
Okay, yeah. I feel like this season, the openings have been super weird. I'm like, how did like I have been questioning whether they're cold opens or not, and I'm like, how did
Mm-hmm.
we get here? Like, did I miss something? And then it just keeps going, and I'm like, nope. Like, there was an episode a few ago where there was just a whole new character that just arrived, and all they said was like they encountered this character, and then they were like a super central
Oh
character
yeah.
for the whole episode. I don't even remember what their name was, but there was like no context for where
Yeah.
this character came from. But they're just like in the middle of a battle and they're like super in there the whole episode, and then I guess we never see them again. So like I feel like they
Mm-hmm.
like maybe did fewer cold opens, but are still doing like I feel like the starts of the episodes are still just as jarring.
Yeah, they're kind of just in the middle of the story, and yeah, I totally remember that one. It's with Probopass and the trainer who's named Alan, I
Yeah.
believe. Hmm.
Yes.
So we talked about this a bit, but the fun, interesting part about that episode is actually the voice actor for Alan. Did you have any idea who that might be?
No, who was it?
It was Goku's voice actor.
No, I don't watch Dragon Ball Z question mark.
Yeah, I've not watched it in a long time either, but I was like, oh, now that you say it, this is why they made Alan's character this whole personality. But again, he's fighting Turtwig in that episode, and then this one also begins with Ash just saying use energy ball, and you're like, well, oh, okay, I guess we're training. Um, and that's when Brock's
Yeah,
like,
I think I
mhm.
missed when Energy Ball became this big thing, but I feel like it's like several episodes of
Yeah,
us getting Turtwig failing Energy Ball, and I'm like, I guess this is the thing that's happening now.
yes, this started with the unknown episode because what's his name? One of Don's rivals, from Twin Leaf Town, has a
Kenny?
Breloom. Kenny, thank you. Yes, Kenny's using Energy Ball in his Breloom, and Ash is like, oh, Turtwig
Oh,
could
right,
use
yeah.
that.
I remember now. Yeah.
Exactly, and now like that's the plot. Like, is Turtwig trying to learn Energy Ball in these next few episodes? But their training is cut short here as Brock's like, hey, it's getting late. We have to find a place to stay. But there's no Pokemon Center. And of all times, this is when Dawn decides to speak up and say, oh, yeah, there's a hot spring hotel around here that I know about that we could go to. And I'm like, why didn't you just say it earlier? Like, they could have planned for this.
Yeah, and also it's like this best friend who we have never ever heard of before, but who
Yeah.
conveniently like owns a hot spring hotel exactly where they are. Sure.
Right. So apparently they moved from Twin Leaf Town to this middle of nowhere location to build like a whole hotel. So Don just has like friends all over the region. Apparently, is what I'm starting to discover. First
Yeah, she's
Kenny.
clearly very well connected.
Yes. She like actually has friends in all these towns, and when they're not looking, she goes to visit them, and they're like, "Where'd you go?" Um, and as we get to the hotel, we get a very dramatic little scene with Leona, who is the friend of Dawn, as she's counting on her Swinem to help her out with something. Swinem are pretty cute here, I have to say.
They're very cute. I like their little like nub swine nub chant and their little like
Yeah.
formations. They're very cute. I like them a lot.
And as she's in the middle of talking to them, Dawn shows up and she's like, "Hey, it's Dee Dee," which immediately kills Dawn's momentum.
Yep, she really does not like that nickname. Although I will say,
Hmm.
they're like, there's this supposed to be like this big secret of why she's called Dee Dee, and I'm
Hmm.
like, why does there have to be a story? Like her name starts with D, and she was like a
Mm.
kid. Like, sure, it makes sense. Why is there like this
Yeah.
big mystery around
Hmm.
her nickname? But I wonder if we'll ever get to know what the story behind that is.
I'm trying to remember if that's this season or next season. I think it might be the next one, actually. So
Oh,
strap
well,
in.
stay tuned.
But yeah, I'm like, it's her name's Dawn. Like her last name could be like Daniels or something. Like it could just be that simple. But it's definitely more of like, why does Dawn not want to tell them about it? And she's like, Leona's like, all right, I'll drop the nickname. And they're like, hey, it's great to see you. How's the hot spring hotel? Leona tries to kind of answer, but she then like kind of changes the subject and says, "Hey, I saw you on TV at the contest." And Dawn's like, "Oh yeah, about that," because Leona's like, "Oh, I know you lost, but I'm sure you'll enter the next one." And Dawn's like, I think I might not enter my next contest for a while because I'm going to take a break."
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking, where didn't Kenny show up and is like, or was that like at the end of the Salacian town? When did Kenny show up? And when Dawn was like, "I'm not gonna do the next contest," is Kenny was like, "You have to do the next contest," and she's like, "Okay, I'll do the next contest." What episode was that?
Yeah, so that was near the end of the Salacion contest. Of that episode. They like Kenny leaves in the evening, but they decide to stay at the Pokemon Center for the night. And the next morning, that's when Zoe shows up and gives her the breakdown of her performance and also says, "Hey, it's okay to take a break." So Kenny also doesn't know that Dawn's gonna take a break here.
Oh, okay. And somehow in my brain, that moment was like confused with this, but yeah. Dawn's like, "How's it going?" And Leona's like, "No need to worry," which was cute.
Yeah.
And then, but like, I was like, "Dawn, like, read the room. Like, Leona
Right.
clearly doesn't want you to use these hot springs for whatever reason." But Dawn goes running on to those hot springs, regardless of all of the cues coming from Leona.
Yeah, like they even go and get changed with their swimwear. And then all that time, Leona doesn't really step in and try to tell them, like, stop. Like, she kind of just gives up until they get to the hot springs themselves, which has, like, a Gyarados, like, plate on the back, which I found kind of cool. That's where the water comes from. And they hop in and find out it's shallow and cold.
I also thought the Gyarados fountain was cool. Continue.
Yeah. I'd also like to see, like, a Milotic one. That'd be neat.
Ooh, yeah. Milotic is like Gen 2 or something?
Milotic is Gen 3, but...
Okay, so we do have Milotics by this point.
Exactly. I kind of feel like Milotic's actually more popular when Gen 4 came along, because it became easier to get, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a whole other thing. Here, Leona says, like, "Hey, can you tell how embarrassed I am that, like, the hot spring isn't working?" And we just cut to later where they're all dressed up again, and she's explaining that the hot spring source is located at the top of this mountain where the water flows through, and her parents actually went to go investigate what's going on because the water just stopped coming a few days ago.
Yeah, so Hot Spring Hotel not doing so good, big mystery, and I don't know if it's now or later, but they're like, "Okay, we're gonna Leona's like, "I'm gonna like get my swine-ups to go find more hot springs," and the twerps are like, "Great, we'll help you," and they embark on an adventure to go find new hot springs.
Exactly, because this is the reason she has these swine up here, and kind of what she was doing at the beginning of the episode, which is getting her swine up ready to find the source of the hot springs. And I guess, like, maybe find a new one in case something happened to the old one that they were using. But I'm pretty sure this is also part of what Swinum's abilities include. Because they have, like, good noses and can search for smell to discover hot springs, as Dawn discovers with her Pokédex. And in Gen 2, actually, there was a whole episode of them using Swinum to try to find an oil source in the middle of this desert. So it's interesting that they're using them for something else here as well. Okay, this is where we get to the part where I'm like, did we really need this? Because we start getting flashbacks to Dawn and Leona in kindergarten.
Yeah, I also thought that this was kind of weird.
Like, we see them in their uniforms, and throughout the episode, we get sprinklings of these flashbacks to kind of explain that they're a team, that they took down this bully together. But, like, I felt like you could have just used more time to like, show and talk about it rather than, like, give these these flashbacks, which, like, sure, show them adorably dressed in the preschooler trainer garb that you see in the games, but honestly, one would have been enough.
Yeah, and also like jumping forward to the end of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
they like have these flashbacks throughout showing how they dealt with this like playground bully. And
Mm-hmm.
the last flashback is them like standing over the bully with like their
Yeah.
feet on his back. And I'm like, is the implication that they like teamed up and beat him up? Like, is that the moral of
Right.
the story here? Question mark?
Yeah, like they don't ever explicitly explain what they did. They just we took down the bully. And it's like, is this kid dead? Like, what did you do with him? Because there's like a scene also where like they hold hands and punch him together, supposedly.
Yeah, I was like, why is this a thing that you are advocating for? Like, that's not how
Yeah.
you handle bullies, kids. There
Mm-hmm.
are better ways. Violence is not the answer.
Exactly. Pokemon, I don't know what you're doing this episode, but F for role modeling for young kids.
Yep.
That's you heard it here first here on Sights on Sinnoh. We then find out what's going on with the hot springs as we see Team Rocket has actually. I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. They tapped into the pipe where the hot spring source was coming from to Leona's family hotel and have built their own hot spring higher up on the mountain. So they kind of what's the word? They've pretty much just stolen the water source infrastructure that Leona's parents had set up for their hot springs.
Yeah, they
And
conveniently had the brilliant business idea of opening a hot spring hotel and are, I guess, like siphoning the water away
yes,
from like Leona's parents' hotel and like starting to build their own hotel.
right. And I'm like, how long have you been doing this? Like, this had to be weeks at least before our main character showed up, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't know, but they're like getting all like dressed up to dig, I guess, the foundation for their hotel, and Meowth says something like, "We're gonna dig as hard as music fans at a rock concert." And I was like,
Yeah.
do people at rock concerts dig? Like, is that a thing people say? Like, not totally sure about this analogy.
Yeah, I'm like, does he mean like I dig that music, like I like it?
I
But
think so. I don't know, man.
it's not super clear. But I think the funniest part here is when we see this like artistic montage of them supposedly digging for the water source. And like we see them like dig up treasure, but they're like, no, we're here for the hot springs, so we're gonna keep digging and just ignore this treasure. And it like shifts through these portraits, which I thought was kind of funny, because it's all clearly an act. As we find out that something's fishy here, Leona is actually able to tell that the water feels and I think even tastes like the water from her hotels.
Yeah, she's like, this isn't a new hot spring. This is our hot spring.
Yeah, like I recognize this water. This clearly can't be yours, and calls them out on that. But then like they reason, hey, we could just have a very similar source to yours. But this argument quickly falls apart as a Whooper suddenly appears in the hot spring here, wearing an interesting little device on its tail. And then we cut to this. We just cut to the next scene of Ash picking up the Whooper. So I'm like, oh, did Whooper just like swim over to them? But Leona points out, I believe, that this is a tracker, and the Whooper belongs to none other than her parents. Surprise! The parents conveniently appear walking down by the fountain, and they're like, "Oh, what a coincidence! Hi, Leona."
I was like, is it a coincidence?
Yeah.
I feel like it's not that big of a coincidence. Like,
Right.
okay. But yeah, Jesse is also like, you can't prove this is your water. I don't see your name written on this water. If you
Yeah.
can show me where your name is written on this water, then okay.
It's like, hey, legally, you have no say here. But this is when we find exactly how Team Rocket has been siphoning the water, as they've installed a pipe that goes directly into the side of the family's pipe. So what they did is they just chucked this Whooper in from the entrance and followed it down as it went through this alternate pipe. So, reveal, confirmation, this is indeed her family's water. And Team Rocket's like, the jig is up, so they throw off their uniform, showing Team Rocket underneath, and do like a whole hot spring related motto.
I liked this motto. It's cute.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
Chill. I don't know. I like how they've been like changing up the motto a little bit because it definitely, I don't know if they do that in other seasons, but like definitely gets repetitive. So it's kind of fun when they change up some of the lyrics. So I liked their little like, we are here to chill, and they like had all of these cute shots of them relaxing in their hot springs with their new and improved motto for this episode.
Yeah, that's true. I think this season does that a bunch more, and I love the creativity that they put in here. So, like, some of the word changes I think include Jesse saying putting me at ease and you in your place. So just like
although I think my favorite edits this season so far was when Dawn and Ash had their own version of the motto.
Yes! Oh, that's great. I love that one. In the Spiritomb episode for reference, if anyone's listening.
Yeah.
And here, Dawn's like, no, they're a bunch of criminals, because the mom thinks they're kind of cute. So then they start battling as Team Rocket reveals they have this weird bucket head robot thing.
A Bada Bing robot.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
That's what it's called in the captions. I missed it if they said it, but it was like I think it was called Bada Bing in the captions.
And they do like the most 200 IQ move here, which is spray them all with hot spring water. Because as Pikachu tries to go in for a Thunderbolt, Ash is like, no, we're all wet. You might shock all of us. So Pikachu's immediately nerfed for using electric attacks.
Yeah, I actually thought that like this whole ploy was like actually one of Team Rocket's better plans with like the pipe siphoning was like actually kind of smart, I feel like. And also they were like so prepared with this big Bada Bing robot. So.
Yeah. Like
Team Rocket.
They were prepared. They apparently knew something was going to happen at some point, so they got this together. And as Leona and Dawn start trying to figure out what to do here, she just says to the swine up to all use dig, which Team Rocket's like, what's going on here? And the swine up come up under the leg of this robot, which immediately causes it to lose balance. And then spill hot water over Team Rocket and then all over itself, which leaves the robot very hot and like as hot metal can be. And Dawn then steps in to use Ice Beam on the robot with Baniri. And then the metal starts to crack from the sudden flash freeze between hot and cold, and then completely just falls apart.
Yep, good try, Bada Bing robot.
Yeah, it's gone too soon. And also, I'd say pretty smart move on Dawn's part as well. That they're like, hey, let's use science here to try to control the situation. And it works, even sending Team Rocket blasting off.
Yeah, 5 head moves all around this episode.
Exactly, yeah. And Leona and Dawn are like, yeah, just like old times. And those were great combinations, so kind of a learning to contest as well. The parents are like, hey, yeah, if we stick around, we promise you guys can use our hot springs once we have it all back in order. So I don't know how quickly they're able to do it, but they somehow start working on the hot spring fixes. And in the meantime, they decide to do a tag battle with Leona and Dawn versus Ash and Brock. So were you expecting a tag battle this episode like this?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I was expecting it, but I also wasn't like, whoa, tag battle when it happened. So I was like, oh, okay, like, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, neither. I was like, oh, sure, like, might as well get some action in here as well, which I think is always nice. And also have Dawn do some battling as well.
Yeah, like at the very beginning, right when they met Leona, Ash was like, let's have a battle. And Leona was like, I'd love to, but like, I'm busy. I have a job.
I'm promising to do the child labor for my family. Excuse you. But yeah, I totally forgot that Ash and Leona were going to battle at the beginning. So Kind of cool that we got to this point here. They're not doing too hot though against Sudowoodo and Chimchar, but Swinub then goes in for a Ice Shard and Piplup uses Bubble Beam, but they're able to dodge the attacks again. So we again get like this inspirational moment of like what would Leona and Dawn do if they were in kindergarten again.
Yeah, first of all, like, Brock and Ash's team is so weak to water.
Yeah.
And, like, Piplup doesn't open with a water move. Like, okay.
And they're also weak to
like,
ground,
struggling.
which Swinub is. A ground
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Ice type.
So, like, and it was a weird tight matchup. But anyway, we got like most of the playground montages in this scene of like Dawn and Leona remembering when they took down that bully in kindergarten and clearly intending to do the same in this moment.
Yeah, and the part here that makes it fall apart for me is that they both like have this flashback, look each other in the eyes, and say nothing to their Pokemon. But we find out that when Chimchar goes in for a Flame Wheel, it misses because Swinub used Dig to not only save itself, but also Piplup, who jumped in the hole.
Wait, no, didn't they say to dodge? And then how they dodged was they jumped in the hole that Swinub had dug for Dig earlier, I think is what happened.
Oh, so what I see is more like Dawn tells Piplup to protect Swinub. But then
this is really cute because Piplup is like, I'm ready to take this for you, Swinub, and like stands in front of Swinub and he's really ready to take this hit, and it's very cute.
Yes, and then we just get this silent strategy, I guess, from Piplup and Swinub, which was to use Dig. So I'm like, if you're gonna show all these things, like, I don't know, maybe have them actually tell their Pokemon to do stuff, because apparently they just kind of get the memo here and do it, but they don't really get much instruction from their trainers on how to act in this part of the battle, at least.
Yeah, that's true. They're just so in sync.
Yeah, exactly. Piplup is able to fire a direct Whirlpool on Chimchar, and then they just keep referencing the freaking playground, and we get to the moment where they're just standing on the bully's body. Yeah. Piplup goes in for a Bubble Beam. Chimchar is still taking hits. Ash, I don't know what he's doing here, but he's not helping Chimchar. And then Swinub goes in for Blizzard. Sudowoodo interrupts it with a Double Edge, but the Blizzard still hits Chimchar, so he's just having a rough time this battle.
Yeah, there was a really sad shot of Chimchar all wet from Piplup's Whirlpool, and I was like, oh.
And this doesn't help as we get another Blizzard on Blizzard attack between Swinub and Sudowoodo. How Sudowoodo using Blizzard? By using Mimic, of course, so also always a fan of seeing Mimic in use. But the Blizzard, the double Blizzard is actually pretty effective, as we see that all 4 Pokemon on the battlefield have been frozen from this.
Yeah, so it ends up being a tie, which I guess is convenient. And then Brock is like, it's a tie. So like all 4 trainers like walk up to each other and are like, good job. Like that was such a good battle. Like you guys did so good. And I'm like, literally all of your Pokemon are frozen solid on the battlefield. Like what are you doing? Go take care of them. But
right.
I guess like Hot Springs incoming, they can wait for everyone to like chit chat or something.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, this is perfect for us to go and cool off in the hot springs and apparently melt them out of their ice is the implication. So I guess they just carry them over to the hot springs from here.
I guess so.
Yeah, because we see them all in the hot springs now. The Pokemon are on one side playing. Like we see Happiny, Pachirisu, Baneri, and Piplup like splashing each other. Chimchar, Piplup, the Swinub, and Sudowoodo. Sudowoodo, of course, being hydrophobic, is just chilling on the side, enjoying the steam, I guess.
I didn't even notice. That's funny.
Yeah, cute little detail there. Though we saw it kind of get over its fear of water earlier, so I'm not totally sure why it's there, but maybe it just likes that better.
Yep, and we also get a shot of Weasel punching the water stream because Weasel never stops training.
Yes, he's never gonna relax, never gonna give up. Also a little shot of Krogunk, Turtwig, and Staravia like blushing in the water. So maybe
Yeah, that makes sense. They have some color from like the heat of the water. That was cute.
yes, you're right, right. What if I told you Weasel punching that water comes into play later?
What?
As in, like, maybe 2 seasons from now.
What? Okay, sure, whatever.
We'll see. Just hold that in the back of your head.
Okay.
But they are all chatting it up in the hot springs. Leona's saying eventually she'll get back onto the gym challenge as like once the hotel's up and running again. And she motivates Dawn as well to like get back on track with her dreams. Brock points out to Ash, "Hey, it looks like Dawn's got her confidence back." And Ash is like, "Yeah, it looks like it. Hey, Leona, why did Dawn's old friends call her Dee Dee?" And she's like, "Ash, you don't know? Well, you see." But before she can answer, Dawn tries attempted murder by pushing down Leona's head into the water.
Yep. Sure. Attempted murder is what we'll go with. I will also note that so this is all happening while they're like in their swimsuits in the hot spring, and I don't think I've ever noticed how like sideways sticky outy Ash's hair is. Like it looks really ridiculous without his hat. And I was like, it definitely looks. It's like asymmetrical and very sticky outy, and like sticks out horizontally. Like definitely more than Leona's does, because she has like kind of short sticky outy hair, but hers looks fine. But Ash looks absolutely ridiculous wearing like no shirt and no hat with his hair sticking out horizontally.
Yeah, it's just like a little too long and pointy. I feel like in future seasons they kind of toned it back a little bit, which I think is actually not bad. But yeah, especially contrasted with Leona, I'm like, maybe out of maybe Leona's hair should be more like, I think both their hair might be, you could reason should be more like down, I guess, because of like the steam and the hot spring and stuff like that. But they don't really go into that much detail here with the water physics and heat physics. But yeah, once again, we do not get the answer to Dawn's nickname, and cut to the next day with everyone just saying goodbye to each other and saying, "Hey, yeah, we'll be here if you ever want to come use the hot springs again." And it looks like the narrator says that Dawn's confidence is back, that they've been revitalized from the hot spring, and we'll continue onward to Ash's next gym battle.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and that's this episode. So, Carina, what would you rate Hot Springing a Leak, which is episode 11 of Battle Dimension?
I think I'd give this episode a 6.5. Like, I think I enjoyed it about as much as the last one, but I'm taking off half a point for all of the bully flashbacks, which were kind of weird. But yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, same here. It was kind of nice that we're retconning some of Dawn's history and being like, hey, yeah, she has friends in Sinnoh, which kind of makes sense. And honestly, like, if you think back to Misty and Maid, was kind of weird that they're from this region, so it would make sense that maybe they knew, like, some people in other parts of their travels. And here we've, like, met Kenny and now Leona, so I'm like, oh, cool, we're kind of building up a bit of Dawn's history, even though it's not super in-depth. It's kind of neat to see. The flashbacks, yeah, like, one, as I mentioned before, one would have been fine, but they do, like, 5, I think, this episode.
Yeah, I think it was too much in the last battle. Like, they kept cutting away from the battle to these, like, weird flashbacks, and I was like, I want to see the Pokemon beat each other up now! Like, I don't want to see little kids beat each other up in the past.
Right! Keep the violence to the Pokemon, not the humans, especially the young ones. And I don't think it's the strongest way to show that Dawn's recovered. Because the last few episodes have been very much about her trying to get over the loss at the contest, but this one, I like could kind of see them doing that because she's trying to remember like her old confident self when she was younger, but I feel like it could have been a bit more organic and less like all these flashbacks with Leona are eventually what kind of lead to her getting her confidence back. So
yeah, I can agree with that.
And yeah, just with all that in mind, I think I'd also give it 6.5 as well. Not a bad episode, still kind of nice and cute, but definitely could be stronger a bit in its execution.
We are so in sync.
Yes, we're definitely. I feel like we're definitely a lot more in sync here for these two than some other ones as well. So I'm glad to see that as well.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have definitely never screamed at you on this podcast.
Yes, that's never happened. Don't watch episode 30 something. I'm sorry, don't say no. Some trivia here. Oh, cool. So they actually mentioned this. An episode featuring 3 Sinnoh and hot springs also aired during the JoJo saga. So that's what I mentioned before, happening during Gen 2. And they also catch what you said, which is Leona using Dawn's catchphrase. No need to worry. So good eye there. Okay, this is some weird piece of trivia. Team Rocket's sunglasses in this episode are reminiscent of the ones the Squirtle Squad wore.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I guess. That's a thing. And apparently when Team Rocket is being blasted off, they actually reference something that is a famous hot spring song in Japan. So a little play on words that didn't quite make the cut, I think, in English, but was something they included on the Japanese side. So,
that's fun.
Yeah. Question of the week. Would you rather run a maid cafe or a hot spring hotel?
Definitely a hot spring hotel. That seems way more chill.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't want to deal with having to take care of the animals and, like, clean up food and...
Yeah, and, like, those maid outfits are cute, but they look super uncomfortable.
Yes. As we both know, someone who wore a maid outfit recently, I don't think I could do that for multiple days at a time. I
don't think I could even do it for, like, 12 hours. So.
Exactly, yeah. And I've been to some hot springs in Japan, and I could definitely go again. Though I've never been to ones outdoor like this, and I think those are on my list for sure to get like the natural hot springs for some relaxation time.
Yeah, well, we have them here in BC. So.
Oh, okay. Really? It's just for like natural ones from the mountain?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I have to visit then, or like find somewhere in the U.S. that has them because I'm not quite sure where they are. So if you know, go ahead and let us know in the comments because I'll put that on my list of where to go someday. And as always, if you have any thoughts about the episode, feel free to leave those comments down below as well. Feel free to check through our playlist as we've covered all of the first season of Diamond and Pearl and now going through Battle Dimension. And if you want to watch these episodes with us, you should be able to find some of them on Pokemon.com and Pokemon TV's official app. So that's a great place to just watch the series in general, not even Diamond and Pearl because sometimes they rotate those out. But yeah, that's a great place to just check out the dub version of the show. And as always, I've been Will, joined once again by Carina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if people want to hear some other things that you have to say, where can they find you on the internet?
I am Pangumon on the internet.
Yes, and I will be teasing on Twitter and Twitch if you want to maybe see me edit the podcast there or play some Unite as well. We are there sometimes. But this has been another episode of Sights on Sinnoh. We will see you next time with an episode called Riding the Winds of Change as we get a potential new partner to the party. Maybe even two parties. Yes. Ooh.
Ooh, I haven't watched the next episode yet.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Just gonna throw some predictions in there.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna get a Bidoof because we're long overdue for one of those.
Oh man.
And I guess we've seen Luxray, but we never saw Shinx.
Well, we saw Shinx in one of the worst episodes, which was the Jubilife City Poketch episode.
Oh yeah, and I remember I like have zero recollection of what the context of this was, but in a recent episode, that Poketch app that they like went through the maze for came in real handy.
Yeah,
they like needed to do a coin toss, and I was like, I have an app for that. And I was like, oh, I see. Anyway.
Yeah, that came back around, didn't it? Oh man, I mean, just that app in general is like, it's a literal coin toss. Like, if you don't have a coin, but you have a watch, there's an issue there, maybe. But yeah.
No, I feel like these days nobody carries coins, but everyone has like their Apple Watches. It's totally a thing.
That's
very ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, it's very futurist, the Pokemon anime. And yeah, as you stick around, feel free to listen, share. I always appreciate that. I've been Will again.
And I am Carina.
And we will see you in Sinnoh. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye.